So, good morning, everyone. For today, for this study entitled Changing the Wording and Definition of Two Identical Math Quizzes and Its Effect on Students' Performance, a comparative study on first year engineering students in National University. So, we need the data to compare how students perform with the quizzes that are technically identical but worded differently. So the goal is to understand how changing the wording and definitions in two identical math quizzes affects the performance of first-year students. So this allows us to determine whether or not the way math problems are presented influences how well students perform. So the first quiz, we will use straightforward conventional wording, while the other will use slightly altered or more complex wording. So we distribute these two different set quizzes through Google Form, and we use the gender profile to analyze the effect of wording on their performance. So by conducting the study in this way, we are isolating the variable of wording, allowing us to measure how language, definition, and problem presentation impact students' understanding and test outcomes. So without this gathering, this data, we wouldn't have this result to make any conclusions about how the quiz wording affects performances.
So thank you, Ms. Jamila, for explaining our study. For, for our next is all about our Google form. Our Google form is look like this. Next slide, please. The first page includes informed consent, making respondents aware that their answers will remain confidential. They can choose to provide their name, age, and gender, which is optional. Our questionnaire is all about algebra, and Ms. Jamila explained that there are two sets of questions, and this question was created by each member of the group. Each member gave two sets of questions with 4 choices, and it looked like that. Next slide, please. We have a total 20 questions for set A and B. Set A questionnaire is direct and doesn't have any analyzation, while set B, next slide please. While set B questionnaire is also the same but not direct as the set A, and it needed an analyzation. For us, being able to determine if the changing of words and definition in two identical math quizzes can affect the performance of first-year students. Next slide, please. When our respondents are already complete, which is 30 respondents, we carefully analyze their scores for both set A and B. For set A, a perfect score is 10 out of 10, and we expect to see how many respondents achieve this score. For set B, we also check if the respondents achieve a score 10 out of 10. The scores from both sets will give us important data for our output. By comparing the scores from set A and set B, we can determine if the changing of wordings and definitions in two identical math quizzes can affect the performance of first-year students. The next topic will be explaining of Mr. Yuan.
So let's proceed to the Microsoft Excel, where we will analyze our data. First here, we have the set A and set B, where the first set is the first quiz. And we have here the results, and that's for set A and for set B. And for our null hypothesis, it states that there is no significant difference in the performance of the National University's first-year engineering students when the wording and definitions of two identical math quizzes are changed. And the alternative hypothesis is there is a significant difference in the performance of the national university's first-year engineering students when the wording and definitions of two identical math quizzes are changed. And the tailed test we use is the two-tailed test that allows us to check if changing the wording of the quizzes affects student scores in either direction, with whether it leads to better or lower performance. And the level of significance that we use is 0.05 significance level. It means we are confident in our results. If we find a difference, it indicates that there is only a 5% chance that this difference is due to a random chance. Therefore, we can be 95% confident that any observed differences in scores are truly due to changes in wording. And as we proceed to our data analysis, let's welcome Ms. Forcadas to discuss the data analysis.
So, we get the p-value with the use of data analysis. There you see the different statistical test. We use t-test to sample assuming equal variances. For variable 1 range, get the score in section A. For variable 2 range, the score in section B. In hypothesis mean difference, we just put 0. Our alpha level is 0.05. Then, okay. There, you will see a table. What we're finding is p-value. In the table, there is a p-value of 1 tail and 2 tail. Since we are 2-tailed test, so we'll get the p-value of 2 tail. Then copy. And we compare it in our alpha level. So, p-value is less than the alpha level. So, it reject the null hypothesis and proceed to conclude alternative hypothesis. So, we dare conclude that there is significant difference in the performance of the National University's first-year engineering students when the wording and definitions of two identical math quizzes are changed. So next is John Philip to explain the challenges encountered while doing the final output.
Thank you for that. And now for the challenges. So, conducting the study presented several challenges. The primary challenge that we faced was designing the two quizzes with identical content but varying wording because it required careful phrasing to maintain fairness and ensure consistency. Also, avoiding the students' bias was also critical, as students' awareness of the quiz's similarities could influence their scores. So, administering a timer for both sets was essential so that they would focus more on finishing the survey on time rather than noticing the similarities of both sets. Controlling other variables such as time pressure and motivational levels posed difficulties and were addressed by providing enough time for them to answer each question, making the quiz easier to answer and making the questions interesting but doable. Also, analyzing and interpreting the data was complex, particularly if the score differences were subtle, which called for advanced statistical techniques like per t-test, specifically two-tailed test, to accurately assess the impact of wording. Additionally, ethical considerations were prioritized. With the informed consent, we assured students that their data will not be disclosed and that the quiz results would not affect their grades. Then, after completing the study, presenting the findings clearly was essential, and the results could provide valuable insights into how question phrasing influences academic performances, helping educators reflect on their assessment practices and teaching methods. And that concludes our presentation for this study. Thank you for your time and who got here today. Thank you.